are some of the characteristics that makes the Catholic Church different. They follow an orthodox dogma in the way that you need to memorize and not question it. It has a hierarchy. Only priests and the ordained by the Catholic Church has access to the Bible and its interpretation. The Pope is the representative of God on earth. Justification by works. If you want to be saved, you have to engage in the proper ritual. Actions are more meaningful than words. This creates a problem of hypocrisy, because no matter what, as long as you do what you're told, you're going to be okay. Corruption in the Church. Many priests engage in corrupted practices and abuses. Protestant Church. As opposed to the Catholic Church, anyone has direct contact with God. They also don't need a priest to tell you what the Bible means. The Church is fundamentally egalitarian, and this creates a problem of diversity. Salvation by faith. You have to really believe in God and erase all doubt. This creates anxiety, for you have to be sure you have faith, and how do you know that? Holy Trinity. God, Son, and Holy Spirit, they are equal to each other, and they are also one. This creates anxiety because it is very confusing. How can you connect with God? Before there wasn't a problem because the Church stood between you and the Holy Trinity. This connection has been updated through the centuries because the idea of the Holy Trinity was not included in the Bible. This was introduced later in the councils of Nicaea and Constantinople around the years 325 and 381 AD. Double predestination. If you remove the Church, how would you know if you're going to heaven or not? Well, God is perfect, and only those who believe in Him will be saved. This creates anxiety. The solution is money. In the world we are different, and we see it differently. Money systematizes and clarifies everything into a coherent whole. Yeah, if you have different kinds of wine and you taste them, they would seem the same to you. But if you put a label, and each label has a price, which would you think is better, the expensive or the cheap? You would say the expensive is better, right? We reshape the world around money. We don't stop until we make more money. Money is directly connected with God. If you have money, God has blessed you. If you are poor also, the kingdom of heaven is for the poor, and in order to have rich people there have to be poor people to make them rich. This was the birth of capitalism. Exists also the practice of charity. Give money to the poor, but accumulate as much money as you can and don't waste it. This process took centuries and defined the world as it is today. We worship the richest in our society. Capitalism believes that money is reality itself. Modernism. In the beginning, the main religion was animism. We are not different from other living things like animals or plants. We are interconnected in the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. We then came to believe in a mother goddess. Fertility is more important, and we needed to grow more crops. We worshiped the mother goddess, and women had a greater status at this stage in history. But as populations grew bigger, communities started to fight against each other, and this created polytheism. Each group had its own god. When a community lost against another community, their god became subservient to the winning gods, and this created the idea of pantheons like the Greeks or the Romans and Northmen. Then it came the idea of monotheism with the Abrahamic religions. However, the Persians had the first monotheist religion in history. Epistemology is the study of knowledge and how ideas come together. How do we know what we know? And we have great philosophers like Kant. In Kant's philosophy, active subjectivity refers to the idea that the human mind is not a passive receiver of information but an active participant in shaping knowledge and experience. Hegel with the theory of the Geist, the spirit, the mind. It represents the evolving collective consciousness of humanity moving through history toward freedom and self-realization. Marx. History is the movement of class struggle as capitalism becomes worse and worse. Everybody will be enlightened. They will understand reality, and the capitalist class will end. Freud. Freud believed that the individual is unconscious. He proposed the idea, which is our instincts and our desires, the ego, which is what we are, reality and balance, and the superego, which is morality and ideas. He also proposed the concept of Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Freud had a student, Carl Gustav Jung, who he considered his intellectual heir, but Jung's attempts to broaden and polish psychoanalysis into a more philosophical and spiritual system deeply frustrated Freud. From Freud and Jung we have modernism, the cult of self. We live in a society that is obsessed with self-importance. The cult of self. Freud believed we are sexual beings, and that our sexual urges underpin civilizations, and because we can't control those sexual urges, we create religion to cope with our guilt and anxiety. Freud lived at the end of the 19th century in Vienna. The impact of people by moving to the city. In 19th century Europe, people moved from the countryside to cities mainly because of the Industrial Revolution, which created factory jobs, higher wages, and new opportunities that rural life could not provide. The city life is a higher abstraction. This causes psychological issues, confusion, alienation. Life becomes more structured, scheduled. These produces lack of freedom. Freud saw in his practice that women clients were hysterical. They were afraid that men would touch them because when they were young their father abused them. He was shocked, but as he heard similar stories from different women, he concluded that they must have been telling the truth. He wrote a very famous paper in 1896 called The Etiology of Hysteria Origins. Co-written with Joseph Breuer, this book is considered the founding text of psychoanalysis. Abuse was more common than we believe. Women were traumatized and their symptoms were physical. Jeffrey Moussaieff Masson was a Harvard-trained psychoanalyst who became famous for challenging Freud's legacy. He did have a direct connection to Freud's daughter, Anna Freud, because she invited him to serve as director of the Freud archives in the early 1980s. After reviewing them, he concluded Freud had abandoned the seduction theory not because it was wrong, but because acknowledging widespread child abuse would damage psychoanalysis acceptance. The early Freud was very nuanced, balanced thinker. He trusted the evidence, but he doubted that he had resolved the problem and that there could be better people at this. Freud later stated that young girls have sexual urges, and the father innocently would caress them, awakening sexual desires. They start to masturbate. This creates a sense of resentment, hatred, and more hysteria. It was not the father's fault, and the girl is not able to differentiate fantasy from reality. Hysteria is common in our society because girls are desperate for attention. There was some evidence that sexual trauma was common in Vienna at the time, in Vienna, Austria in the 19th century.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.